I'm Spider-Man. I mean, I'm Batman. No, I'm Spider-Man. I got the Spider-Man mask on. Not the... I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This is stupid. This is so dumb. Thwip. T-H-W-I-P. T-H-I. Thwip. That's how you spell the sound of webs coming out of Spider-Man. I want to talk about Spider-Man today. That's a little uncommon for me. Most of the time I want to talk about indie books and horror comics or Euro things or something, more weird or avant-garde. But if you didn't know about this, about me already, I do own a comic book store. I have a vested interest in making money in comic books. And I want to talk about the book that is making the most money for me, and I assume all the other stores across the country right now, and that's Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, I'm not being a complete shill. This book is really good. I want to talk about why it's actually it's nice that a book is selling really this well and is this high quality. And it's just hear me out, because if you don't care about things like this, you might be more interested in this than you think. There's some really cool details that go into it, and I think when I start explaining some stuff to you, or maybe not, but I think that you're going to be like, oh, that is cool, that is interesting. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Here is a video about the current best-selling comic book on the stands. It's Ultimate Spider-Man. So yes, Ultimate Spider-Man is a massive blockbuster hit as far as Marvel can get with a comic book these days. And it's gone through like 5 printings. That's a big deal. A lot of books don't even get a second printing. So the fact that it's got 5 printings now of the first issue, they're up to issue 3 right now. And then those issues have different printings. So issue 2 is probably going to get up to probably 4 or 5 printings by the time they knock it off and stop doing these printings. I would not be surprised if the first issue gets to 7. It could go really nuts. They could get up to like 10 printings. I've seen things get like that before. But that's one signpost. This is definitely a book. It's a hot book for sure. Another thing is, in addition to all those different printings, those collectors that really want a first printing, couldn't find any on eBay today for less than $100. I think that's probably going to go down over time. But in the meantime, people that are pretty, I got to get it. They're trying to catch the train before it gets away. They're spending money to get a first printing. But we got second printings, third printings, fourth printings. We got a 5th printing just hit the shelf this week. So I'm hoping to have new #1 Ultimate Spider-Man #1s on the shelf for a good while now for people to come in and pick up and read, because it's a surefire way to get people into comic books. Also, when the book came out, the week that it came out, we sold over 200 copies. I believe that's what I remember, of all the different covers and ratio variants and all that kind of stuff. So it's a hit. We weren't sure if it was going to be a hit, so let's back up a little bit. Let's put it within context, just in case you have no idea what the term ultimate means and why that's important. So, Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Universe started in like the early 2000s. This isn't Marvel. We're talking about Marvel. Marvel continuity, without getting too in the weeds about it, started in the 60s. It's been around a long time. One of the things about Marvel is they don't break their continuity. They'll do reboots and renumberings and all these kinds of things, but by and large, the things that happened to a character in 1973 are still things that are canon in the current comic book. So in the early 2000s, Marvel, what they decided to do is do something called their Ultimate line. And the Ultimate line was a from the ground up brand new thing. It wasn't a new dimension or a Elseworlds or anything like that. It was literally just, we're going to start publishing these stories. We're going to modernize them, right? Because we're going to do some of these stories from the 60s, and now we're doing it in the early 2000s. And we're going to do it in such a way that people feel like they can really just be on the ground floor of a brand new thing. So in this case, when they did it with Peter Parker, he was in high school. That was the big difference. In the main comics, he was, an adult and all kinds of things. But in the Ultimate Universe, he was a high school kid. It was very popular, very successful. It ran 160 issues, and it spawned all kinds of different things. There was the Ultimates, that was the Avengers. We had Ultimate Fantastic Four, which is going to come back up in a minute. So it was a very popular line of books. It did very well. It sold in Barnes & Nobles and Borders when they were still around. Walden Books maybe was still around. I can't even remember anymore. And it did very, very well. But just like anything else, when they go a really long time, sales eventually peter out, if you will. and they decide they're going to put it to bed. So what it was is, and we'll get into more detail later, they essentially used the Ultimate Universe and kind of blew it up in a storyline called Secret Wars, which this was Jonathan Hickman doing that stuff. He's the one that's currently doing Ultimate Spider-Man. All these things are connected. So before they blew up the Ultimate Universe, this original one that we're talking about from the early 2000s, they kept two characters. Everything else, they basically it's gone. And those two characters were one you are going to be familiar with. It's because he's a success story, a video unto himself, Miles Morales. He originally came out of the Ultimate Universe. And the other character is the Maker. Now, that's the one that less people know. So the Maker is Reed Richards, who maybe, I don't know, even we're going to get a Fantastic Four movie, I think, eventually. Reed Richards is Mr. Fantastic, a.k.a. one of the Fantastic Four. In the Ultimate Universe, which is completely different from the main Marvel Universe, things like this can happen in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. He goes bad. He turns into a villain. And ultimately his new moniker becomes the Maker. So through Secret Wars, Ultimate Universe is blown up. They picked out a couple things that they were interested in that the writer wanted to use. Miles Morales, because he was very popular at that point, and they took him and they threw him in the main Marvel Universe, and that's kind of what Ultimate Universe was. That's what people remember. So now we're going to fast forward quite a few years, actually, to this new storyline called Ultimate Invasion. And this is written by John Hickman, drawn by Brian Hitch. It's a really good book. It's out in trade paperback right now. I highly recommend checking out. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I don't want to spoil too many things. But the overall story of that book is that this character, the Maker, again, evil Reed Richards, who's a sort of a refugee from this Ultimate Marvel Universe that's gone now. He's incredibly smart. If you don't know this about Reed Richards, he's like Omega level intelligence or whatever the hell they want to call it. And he essentially figures out how to travel through dimensions and travel through time. So what he decides to do is to go back, recreate the Ultimate Universe that he came from, and he was going to recreate it, except this time he's going to make sure that there's no superheroes. And so he does that by going back in time and keeping things from happening, making sure that somebody doesn't get bit by a radioactive spider. So that's going to be important. We'll talk about that later. And so that's Ultimate Invasion is that. You should definitely read it. It's not necessary to read Ultimate Spider-Man, which is actually what I'm just about to talk about. All that stuff that I just talked about, do you need to know that? No, not really. That's one of the cool things about the Ultimate Universe, now that they're using this term again, because they're relaunching it, so to speak, in this new world where superheroes never existed up until this point. And it has to do with because of all the manipulation by this character called the Maker. So since this world is different, and it's similar in some ways, but in a lot of ways it's incredibly different, it doesn't really matter if you know all that stuff coming into it, because we're all on the same page in the sense that we don't know what's about to happen. Like, there are things that are similar, but there's so many things that are also different. So I am going to spoil a little bit of the first issue, and this is like the first couple of pages, and I think it's more fun for you to read the book, but we'll throw the pages up here right in front of me so you can kind of see. Yeah, I could tell you what's different about Peter Parker in this new book, but I think it's neat how it's revealed in the book. So the book starts out, and the first thing you're going to see really is Peter Parker looking at himself in the mirror. He's got a beard. He has a really great line because he says, Peter Parker's talking to himself. So, Peter Parker, you are not getting any younger, which I think is a really cool kind of meta line, because technically Spider-Man has been around since 1960 something or other. And there's still these plot lines and storylines that we're banging against for this many years. And we'll get to that later, but it does seem like an attempt editorially to keep Peter Parker young, even though he's been around for decades, right? So this is really cool. He's looking in the mirror and he says, Peter Parker, you're not getting any younger. So here's some things you might notice if you're paying attention. He's wearing glasses, like me, spectacles, because we're nerds. But here's the thing. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, in the main Marvel Universe, he doesn't need glasses because he's an ultimate physical specimen because of all of the radioactive spider blood in his system. So he doesn't need glasses. Actually, it's a really good bit in the Sam Raimi thing, right? Where they change the out of focus, not out of focus with Peter Parker, right? When he puts his glasses on, because now he has 20/20 vision. So that's the first thing. You're like, oh, that's interesting. He's got glasses on. And the next thing after that, he's just kind of getting dressed. He's just gotten out of bed, and there's a little insert shot, and he puts on a wedding ring. It's like, okay. And then the next thing is he walks into the living room, and there's two kids, and they both say dad. So he's a dad. Also, the kids, red hair. So you know what's coming. So the next thing is, mom walks into the room, and it's Mary Jane. So That's just the first couple of pages. That's the big difference here between this book and the main thing and everything else, is that in this version of the world, in Ultimate Spider-Man #1, Peter Parker is old. He's in his late 30s. He is married to Mary Jane, and he has 2 children. And then he becomes Spider-Man. Really can't emphasize this enough. That's really what the main pitch of this book is. And that's kind of important, too, when we start thinking about the pedigree of this book. So who's writing it, who's drawing it. So this book is being written by Jonathan Hickman. And some of you might know who he is. If you don't know who he is just quite basically one of the most important modern comic book writers. I did a lot of really amazing indie stuff, including East to West and Manhattan projects. And he has made a huge mark over at Marvel over the years. He first took over the Fantastic Four book, had this big long run on it. A lot of people consider it one of the best, if not the best, Fantastic Four run. He goes from that into Avengers, ditto, same thing. He rides out all that stuff with this thing called Secret Wars that I mentioned before, which is kind of his finale to all the stuff that he'd been doing in Fantastic Four and Avengers over the years. And so it's like, okay, well, you hit Fantastic Four, that's the first big one. Then you did Avengers. Then you're like, well, what is he going to do now? A few years later, he does X-Men. He does House of X Powers of 10. If you haven't heard of it, it's the most exciting X-Men story that anybody has done in years. It revitalizes his interest in the brand, all kinds of things. And so it's like, okay, what's left? I mean, there's all kinds of things that are left, but when you're that high caliber, you already did Fantastic Four, you already did Avengers, you already did X-Men, you know where we're going. Like, the actual Mickey Mouse of Marvel Comics, like, their number one character is Spider-Man. However, as popular as John Hickman is, as good a job as he does, they're probably not just going to let him do whatever he wants on a Spider-Man book. They probably fiercely protect that IP. There's a lot of editorial mandates and things like that. So you kind of have to get around that. And I kind of feel like John Hickman, I mean, who knows what the backdoor dealings are coming up with this was, but this allows him to really do whatever he wants. So we have this ultimate universe for him over here where Jonathan Hickman can tell the Spider-Man story that he would want to tell that he could never tell in the main universe. Okay, so now I want to talk about why is the book a hit? Why is it actually a hit? Because again, don't forget, the Ultimate Universe petered out, right? That was my joke. And also, Spider-Man books get renumbered all the time. What is it about this that is like catching a wave? It's very clearly, hitting the mark. I do think before we should move on to the reasons that I really am excited to talk about, we should mention that the book itself is actually just very high quality. Jonathan Hickman is a fantastic writer. The book is charming. The characters are great. There are sincere moments and funny moments, exactly where they need to be. And there's great dialogue. And Marco Checchetto is the artist on this book, and he's just coming off another very well-loved, long run on Daredevil. So all these pieces are coming together very nicely. It's a beautiful book to look at. It's a perfect comic. It's a perfect comic just in that regard. But that's not really what it is. What it is also the fact that it is a accessible book, which I've talked about already. This is a ground level floor thing. All of us, every single person, is all going to be new to a Peter Parker that is already married with kids before he becomes Spider-Man. That's a brand new concept that everybody is coming to at the same level, no matter what. So that's always appealing because there are people that love Spider-Man. I think of my wife and I have the joke, there's the knocked up lady who's like,
I like Spider-Man.
And everybody wants an excuse to get into Spider-Man. Not everybody, Kyle doesn't. But people love Spider-Man, and they maybe would want to get into Spider-Man comic books, but where, how? It's going so long, and they've been doing, even though they do renumberings on Spider-Man fairly often, they're supposed to be like jump on points and all that kind of stuff, inevitably continuity that's from like 30 years ago might like creep back up, and then you feel left out again. Whereas this is something that you can come in, it's completely new and whole cloth, for the most part. But that's still not even the big thing. The big thing that I want to talk about actually is just the decision to make Peter Parker a father and a husband before he becomes Spider-Man, and having that be the thing. That's the secret sauce. Because I know this is true of myself, and I think that it's true of a lot of other people that are Spider-Man fans. the reason why it's doing so well is because in addition to getting all of these people, these new readers theoretically that want to get into Spider-Man, this is a good spot to come in and check it out. You're also getting all of these people that are already established Spider-Man fans. Because people that are established Spider-Man fans have been reading it for years. They've seen Peter put through every freaking thing imaginable, including, if you might be familiar with this, maybe not, I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's a whole other video, and the whole internet, I'm sure, has already done it. The One More Day storyline, and I'll just do it really fast if you're not familiar. Basically, at some point, editorially, they decided nobody likes Peter Parker married, because he was married to Mary Jane. He got married to Mary Jane, I think in the 80s. Maybe early 80s, late 70s, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm a Spider-Man fan, but I don't know everything. You're going to crucify me. But he was already married. They decided at some point, we're going to unmarry him. He was more interesting when he was like a single guy, catting around and doing all that stuff. So they had this, I'll just say it, really dumb thing where Mephisto, who's basically devil, he's just Satan in the Marvel Universe, and he says, May Parker, Aunt May, is dying, and Peter's like, I'll make a deal with the devil. I'll do whatever you want to save May's life. And he goes, I'll take your wife. So what he means is, it's called One More Day because Peter and MJ know they have one more day to know each other, because then Mephisto will go like this, and he will forget who she is, and she will forget who he is, and it'll be like neither one of them ever met each other. And that was their way of like keeping Peter young, right? Remember me going back to that thing where he's looking in the mirror and he's like, Peter, you're not getting any younger. So I know, look, there's no right or wrong way to read comic books, and there are people that adore Spider-Man, and they don't care where it's gone, and they like those storylines, and I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum or whatever, but I will tell you that a lot of people did not like that, and a lot of people wish that instead of Peter Parker just constantly being kept in like kind of the stasis mode through, all these decades, to them it's really refreshing to see a Peter Parker that looks a little bit probably more like them. These people at age now where they have children, they have wives, they have, real lives and responsibilities that they have to keep up with. And that's more interesting in a lot of ways than like identifying with just, again, like, I'm the college kid and I broke and I don't have any money and like these two girls and I want to have sex with both of them and I don't know what to do. This is kind of like just a lot more interesting, at least to me, and I know a lot of other people it's true too. So it's making a lot of money because it's getting all those new readers, but it's also captivating the interest of all these people that were long-standing Spider-Man fans. And that's it. And this book is doing really well. And I have people coming in, just brand new casual folks. They're coming in. They're like, I heard about Ultimate Spider-Man. Do you have it? And it's really sad. You're like, no, I keep selling out. That's a whole other video. Why do comic books sell out of comic book? Comic book stores sell out of comic books. We'll do that some other time. But because they're doing so many printings of this, it will eventually get to a point where you'll walk in and you'll see them. I'm almost there. I have ones. Next week, I think I get 2s now in the new printing, and then I'll have 3s again. And I'm hoping through the whole summer to have at least the first 6 issues, so people can just walk in and be like, there's the first 6 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. That's how good it is. It's going to create new comic book fans. And that's cool. That's a big, like, watershed book. And that's, like, all I have to say about it. I go really, really fast, and then stop. All this, and then I don't have anything else to say. And then I'm just treading water. And then I don't know what to do. So, forget all that. Who cares? What's really important is, how do you get this book? How do you get into it? It's all about you. It's all about you. And it's all about me and you. And you want to read this book. And you're walking into the store, and it says sold out. It's sold out. Okay. Talk to your comic book store. They might be like the Android's Dungeon in Simpsons, so you maybe don't want to, but most comic book stores have a pull service, they have a holding service, and they will hook you up. I have so many people that are coming in right now, and they're like, I just want to get caught up. And I go, no problem. Let me take care of it. And then I go this, and I make sure that of those, that they get a number 2 4th printing and a number 3 3rd printing, and then I get them caught up. And I'm sure there's a lot of stores that'd be happy to do that with you also. Just ask. And there's no need to come in and new comics coming on Wednesdays. That's another story. You don't have to get there on Wednesday morning. Start a poll. They call it a poll service with your local shop. They'll hold them for you. It's just so silly. I have all these people coming in. I'm sold out by the end of the day. And then all these people come in and they're like, want any more Ultimate Spider-Man number 3s? I go, no, I'm sorry, we're sold out. Are you going to get any more? I'm like, I'm going to try. But in the meantime, I have a free holding service that you're welcome to join to make sure that you get number 3 and number 4 and number 5 when it comes out, and put them aside in the counter for you, and it's cool. It's really good. It's good for everybody. No. No, the internet. Did you just ask me, do I sell online? No, I can't take care of all of you. I take care of 736 people just in my brick and mortar location. That being said, there are lots of. I hope I'd much rather you go and actually support a shop, but you can read this stuff digitally, no problem. And there's plenty of businesses online that will mail you the comic. Like you can buy the comic, they'll mail it to you. As long as you tell people ahead of time, you can get it. You don't have to wait and pay $100 for something down the line because you didn't get it right away. And no, I just can't. People ask all the time, but if I start selling books online, then those 736 other people, they don't get my full attention. So no, not me. You got to find your own, or come visit me if you're in the LA area. Long Beach. I'm from Long Beach. Beach City, that's my claim to fame. So that's it. That's the Ultimate Universe. That's Ultimate Spider-Man. By the way, there is an Ultimate Universe. There's in addition to Ultimate Spider-Man, we have Ultimate Black Panther and Ultimate X-Men that are on the stands right now. They're not selling as well as Ultimate Spider-Man, but those are there also. And yeah, it's I wouldn't tell you guys if I didn't think it was good. And I do think it's really interesting. I think it's really cool. I think especially if you have some little piece of you that has ever been interested in checking out Spider-Man comics, this is your opportunity. This is really your opportunity. So read it any which way you can. It would be really nice if you could support your local shop, but it doesn't matter. Read it any which way you can because it does feel like, I hope, the beginning of something special. Like, that doesn't happen very often. The big, long runs with creator-driven. Chris Claremont is the guy who did X-Men for 17 years. Most of what everybody loved about X-Men now was just one guy coming up with that stuff for like 17 years. It doesn't happen very often anymore. I love the thought of this being just the beginning of Jonathan Hickman's like 5-year tenure on Ultimate Spider-Man or something like that. And it's exciting because it's this brand new universe and you don't know what's going to happen. So go check it out. And stay tuned for more Alpha Rookie stuff, more comic book commentaries, and some more trending news and things that I just want you guys to know about. And go buy some comic books. And then read them. It's important to read them, too. See ya.
What about Batman?
Fuck Batman! Thwip, thwip, thwip! Did you know that thwip is the sound effect? I'm sorry.
You already negated what I said, so it's fine. Okay.
You want to leave that in?
Well, you were right and I was wrong?
I